So ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, welcome to the 2024 Oceanside International Film Festival. We just kicked off our festival last night with an amazing conversation with the great Jason Hill, and are back today, starting off with a little jolt to the system, and a little bit of introspection too. The identity entity is a block that's not just about fear, but how fear can help define ourselves, being such a personal affliction we experience all the time. And to further discuss this, we'd love to get some of the filmmakers up here. So as we begin, we'd of course like to go down the line, introduce yourselves, your role in the film you're in, and the film itself.
Hi, I'm Justin Rubin. I'm the writer-director of Trailhead.
I'm Wendy Marshall, and I am writer, director, producer, and actor in And Yet They Speak. So.
Hi, my name is Sarah Fletcher, and I play Erin in 13 Steps.
Hi, I'm David Lawrence. I am the writer-director of 13 Steps.
Again, I'm Michael Shane Bowles, and I'm the writer and director of The Mad Doctor.
I'm Kevin Botzek. I'm the writer-director of Lockdown.
So going down the line with, starting with Justin here. This film is really spectacular, and not just its execution, but the layout of that execution. And what brought about you to create a film in this almost Nicholas Roeg-esque traversal of what seems to be the state of mind and what may or may not actually have been an actual experience?
Well, I don't want to give away too much, but it was an actual experience. Yeah, and as far as, the open-ended ending, that was fully intentional. When I wrote this film, I knew I wanted it to be a conversation starter, not just about fear, but about mental illness. And, whatever people decide is the reality is fine with me, just so long as it gets people talking.
And that actually leads into what my next question was going to be regarding its statements on mental health, but also statements on a type of story that is becoming more and more aware nowadays, being 411 missing cases. And usually the connection between the two can lead into another. And to elaborate a little more, like what studies and connections did you make when writing the script to tell such an intense story to bring more awareness to this?
Right. Well, this is a very personal script. Obviously, I think we all try and tell stories that are deeply personal to us. And, these are just certain things that have affected me in my own life. In particular, the encounter on the trail is something that actually happened. And, I didn't know how I was going to tell that story, because the story really only took place in my head. Nothing in reality happened. It was a chance encounter that lasted all of 15 seconds, and the rest, my mind created. And, at that time in my life, the space between my ears was a very dangerous place. So I just, looking back and writing the script, I just said, look, be as honest as you can about what was afflicting you. And that's where the script came from.
And that is a truly, truly amazing personal story to bring that to life. And thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Yeah, look, it's something that's not spoken about enough. And I don't necessarily think that I want to be a crusader on this, but this story, it lent itself to me telling my story. So I hope someone connects with it.
Many did tonight. And speaking of stories that truly do seem deeply personal, Wendy, it's been many, many moons since OIFF had you back here with Go Out in Violet Waters, and we would love to know, like today on your world premiere of this great film, what led to this production, not just in execution of delivering the story, but bringing together such a wonderful group, the Jolsons, Larry Groupé, such a great labor of love as you self-describe. Please let us know a little bit.
My goodness, that's a lot. I'll start first by saying that I wanted to make another film, and I have to put a little asterisk by the fact that I wrote it, because it's actually based on a short story that my older son Skylar wrote. And I was looking for another film to do, and he loves horror, and he's brilliant. And so anyway, so I thought this would be an amazing story to tell. And so I adapted it to a screenplay, and then I just started assembling the cast and crew, and I got so blessed and fortunate with the number of people that wanted to come on board and be a part of the project. It really blew my mind away. Larry Groupé he's a primetime Emmy-nominated composer. The Jolsons work with FX Networks, and it's just the level of talent is just. I was honored to be a part of it. So yeah. And
your film itself, it really speaks volumes to the discussions going around today about psychic mediums and the ideas of like an afterlife to an extent, and how that thought can be equally comforting yet also a bit unnerving, to many. And what discussions into that topic kind of revolved around you and your son's idea for the story?
Well, it was completely his idea, not mine. So I'll start by saying that. And for me, I love anything that's psychological, any story that revolves around the mind and sort of the line between reality and our thought, which is sometimes the same and it's sometimes different. So I just really loved the short story that he wrote. So I also just want to add one thing. We actually filmed this in 2018, which was before COVID. And at the time, the thought of someone like wanting to live remotely, like in the middle of nowhere, just seems so bizarre. And then COVID happened, and I'm like, well, this is kind of like everybody wants to do this now. So that I just thought that was interesting, how just sort of the whole dynamic of like isolating yourself in the wilderness just kind of almost had a completely different perspective from when I started filming. So I just wanted to add that.
And going from an amazing tooth rip to a great nail rip with the team here from 13 Steps, we would love to just hear a little bit about how this film, much like Justin's, plays with the idea of kind of metaphorizing some real deep troubles in the real world, but telling us through the lens of a genre film. And what were some of the connotations made when writing your script, in which the 13 steps of this ritual seem to a bit reflect the 12 steps of an affliction of addiction?
Well, I love that you made that connection. I will say I was not that cerebral about it when I was writing it. I wasn't. I wish I were. But a lot of people have made that connection, and so I go with it. And I think, I want, for me, I was trying to write a story about a girl or a woman who was struggling with her own personal demons, and hopefully to leave the audience wondering, was she really fighting an actual demon, or was it her personal demons? Was kind of the idea behind it for me.
And when playing this character, the idea of being personally haunted, can translate in many different ways. And in this way, you nail, probably the two biggest examples that one would immediately go to. And how did you find your best method in combining both, so nuanced, and combining it into such a seamless execution of this narrative?
By feeling both personally haunted from an affliction and well as actually being haunted. I mean, I've been haunted before by a ghost. There was a hotel room I stayed in for a period of time working on a movie, and it was haunted, and I would watch drawers open. And so that was absolutely terrifying. And at the same time, while I was doing the film, it was very heavy material. So in some ways, I suppose that maybe informed this, in that I constantly was questioning, like, what was I seeing was real? However, I think if any of us have ever dealt with some sort of personal affliction of fear or pain or whatever, when you live, as you said, the space between your two ears, it can be a very haunting place when you're constantly circling your head. So I think in particular, when we discussed this role, I just sort of tried to remember that there are a lot of people who constantly live in that space, and that it can be a really scary, terrifying, lonely place. And I think as a human, we've all experienced loneliness at some point. So I think when you start to sort of circle in the idea of loneliness, it then feels very familiar to yourself as a personal place to be, but also for everyone. And I think, you know, that's kind of where I tried to think about it coming from, was that no one was hearing me while we were doing it. I mean, we heard each other, but I mean, as an actor playing a character, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And well, haunting an actual hotel,
it was terrifying. That was terrifying. That was awful. And the hotel staff didn't believe me, and I would be in my room and the drawers would open by themselves. I'm not kidding. That sounds crazy, but that really happened. It was in Canada. But also, like, you know, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just what happens in Canada. I don't know. It was also a really fun film to do. So I don't know. Maybe it was all wrapped up in a great experience.
Well, it may not be in Canada, but we do have someone else here on stage who might understand the thing about hotel hauntings. And Michael.
That's a hotel.
So first and foremost, your film is such a shot of espresso. And was this film always intended to be the quick hit that it truly is? And and if not, how did it lead to become this in the end?
Well, it was about as long as it is because of budget. I mean, we only had a certain amount of time and a certain amount of manpower. It was just Whitney and I making the film, and a couple of other people. So there weren't many people there. So it was always going to kind of be that short. I wrote it sort of for the location. We visited the location first for something else, and I saw the picture of he was, I can't think of the guy's name, but like he found it. It's a Intercontinental, I'm sorry, what's the name of the hotel? Oh, the Cosmopolitan. It's a Cosmopolitan Hotel in Old Town. So I saw that picture in another room when we were looking for, you know, something else, and I just saw that and wrote it just for that picture.
That was exactly my next question, of how integral the location was to the creation of your initial vision. And I would love to know, was your the ritual that is conducted in the film, was that based on anything from your life, or anything that you have just noticed in pop culture?
No, I just made it up.
Truly creative.
Yeah,
True
I was
creative
like, this will
here.
sound cool, and I tried to make it rhyme, and I'm not much of a poet, but that's the best I could do.
And lastly, Kevin, hello.
Hello there.
So for a film that starts, you know, with a death, you know, you really infuse so much life into this room, you know, with like how hilarious your film is, yet at the same time, how harrowing a topic you were able to make and break that wall into humor. How did you go about achieving that, knowing that was, I believe, at least your goal?
Yes, it was the goal, and I'm glad we all thought it was the goal. The project really started with trying to make something scary, and I was looking around for stories, and I definitely just decided to fall back on stuff that I'm good at, and that's just injecting humor into tough situations. And the project started kind of in the beginning of the lockdown, and the working title was Lockdown before I really had an idea, and then it just kind of stuck. And so at the time, you know, everyone was stuck at home, and I had a bunch of my friends and SDSU alumni, other film students, just sitting at home doing nothing, and so I rallied everyone together to basically be productive in a time where nobody was productive at all, or just feeling alone, like we've said before. So giving people purpose in a time where they couldn't go to work. And so the film kind of, emulated that in the sense of adding humor in a dark situation. And I also took a situation that's very common. Home invasion happens a lot in horror films. And so I try to take it upon myself to figure out how to make this as funny as possible.
Speaking more to the home invasion subgenre that you've tackled and completely nailed, we've seen kind of a rise, of these in recent days, especially with the new rise of what the internet now every now and then calls Ring doorbell horror. and when going about it, how did you also want to blend in kind of an accidental romance into the main plot?
Tackling this film specifically, I wanted the writing to kind of have a forefront, and I think it does, with the dialogue and all that stuff. I made a bunch of films before, off concepts, and I wanted to try to tackle something a little bit bigger. And my idea of a little bit bigger was something that had, 3 acts in a short story. Can I fit 3 acts in 10 to 12 minutes? And I decided, well, let's add a subplot, because why not? And therefore that relationship kind of started to blossom. And the whole film really came about off of something my wife said to me when I told her I had a Red Bull vodka, and she thought that was crazy. And off that one thought, I wrote the opening scene, and then it just kind of tumbled from there. So that's kind of how I did it, just trying to tackle a bunch and then had a good inspiration.
So before I get into more of my questions, I'd love to know if anyone else has any first. I want to get some audience time in. Does anyone have a hand to raise? Yes.
Question for anybody. I just want to say that every single one of you did a great job of pulling and it's such a short little amount of time, pulling us in quick enough that I was interested, startling me very well each time, and giving me an ending that I did not expect. That I couldn't be writing it into that. I was just like, oh, I can write this. Because I couldn't, because you did it. Every single one of you. I really appreciate that. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I agree. Wonderful stuff. Really wonderful. And I'm literally thinking of I'm sorry, next to Justin, what's your name?
Wendy.
Wendy. I'm still thinking of her pulling out her tooth, and I'm trying to figure out.
You're trying to figure out what?
I'm trying to figure out, did she see the 2 teeth in his box? I'm still trying to figure that out. And I need your help.
Alex did not see the teeth in the box, teen Alex. So me as a filmmaker, I love things that kind of are circular in a story, where you sort of come back to something, or something relates to something else like a while later in the story. And I love that kind of storytelling. So for me, it was just more of a connection. When I was adapting the film from a short story into a screenplay, my son wrote that it was actually a male character was the lead, but he had lived remotely and was describing it, and I was trying to figure out, okay, how can I get across that this character lives remotely and show that visually? And at the time, I actually was missing a tooth. And I thought, well, let's use this. So that's and then that just I thought blended beautifully with the other story of the dad being a serial killer and collecting teeth as his little mementos. So yeah.
More hands? Any hands? Just in time.
The woman next to the woman I was
The woman who eats fingernails. Yes.
Oh. The budget on that with all the special effects, like, how did you do it? Like, how much and how did you do it?
It costs way more than it should have. But we're doing it as a feature now, so something came out of it.
Amazing. And we have one right here.
Trailhead. Were those motorcyclists? Were those your buddies, or?
They were not my buddies. They are now my buddies. No, you know what? I live right off Sunset Boulevard, and every Wednesday night at around 10 o'clock, they go flying by my house, and the noise is obscene. And I had seen a couple of stories in the news about altercations, interactions with motorists and these gangs of motorcycle riders in New York, in LA. And I just thought, God, that would be really terrifying if you were alone in your car and you had an encounter with these guys. So I wrote that into the script, and then I thought to myself, God, how am I going to get some bikers to do this? And so one Wednesday night, they drove by, and I looked at my wife, and I said, I'll be right back. And I followed them down to the end of Sunset Boulevard, right where Sunset Boulevard meets the PCH. And I just got out, and I walked up to them, and I said, hey, guys. And they looked me up and down. I said, how'd you like to be in a movie? And they said, get out of here, you know. And I think I went back 7 times and kind of got myself close enough to the lead guy, and they agreed to do it. And we shot that scene on Sunset Boulevard at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday with no permits, no closed street, live traffic. And they were great. They were great. I mean, they bought in, and one of the guys took the lead and kind of coordinated everything. And we went around once. We were in a neighborhood, met in this little neighborhood, went around once, went around twice, went around the 3rd time, and one of the neighbors came out of the driveway and started following us. And they were like, we're done. We're done. They didn't want to be involved. They had had some interesting interactions with some of the neighbors there in the past. So, but they are the actual ruthless riders. So.
Well, everyone, I want to thank each and every one of you all again, not just for submitting and being a part of our event this year, but for making wonderful art for all of us to enjoy. It's truly a gift to our world.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone for coming out. This is really such an honor.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being here.